The humid Shreveport air hung heavy as I stared at the ornate brass letter opener on my mahogany desk. 20 years. 20 years I'd poured every ounce of myself into building Northwood Holdings alongside Julian. "I made you who you are," he'd sneered, the bourbon on his breath thick enough to taste. The words, flung like poison darts during yet another late-night argument about the direction of the company, had finally found their mark. We'd started with nothing, just a shared ambition and a handshake in a dusty diner off I-20. Julian, the charismatic front man, the deal closer. And me, Eleanor, the quiet architect, the one who meticulously crafted the foundations of every successful venture. Real estate, logistics, a surprising foray into sustainable agriculture. We'd diversified, expanded, conquered. All the while, Julian took the accolades, basking in the limelight while I remained content in the shadows, ensuring the machinery hummed flawlessly. But his ego had grown with our success, a monstrous vine choking the very partnership we'd forged. The condescending remarks had become more frequent, the outright dismissal of my contributions a casual habit. He truly believed he was the sole author of our shared destiny. That night something snapped. His arrogance had finally eroded the last vestiges of my loyalty. "Fine, Julian," I'd said, my voice dangerously low. "Let's see who you are without me." The following morning my lawyer, Ms. Albright, a woman whose sharp intellect was matched only by her impeccable tailoring, began the meticulous process. Every contract, every holding, every subsidiary. If my name was on it, it was being removed. It was a logistical nightmare, a paper trail that snaked through years of intricate deals. But with each excised signature, a cold sense of satisfaction bloomed within me. Julian, initially dismissive, soon grew frantic. The rumors started to circulate. Key deals were faltering, partners were getting cold feet. His calls became desperate, his voice laced with a fear I'd never heard before. He couldn't understand it. He was Julian Northwood, the titan of industry. How could anything unravel so quickly? He didn't see the intricate web I had woven, the silent agreements I'd forged, the trust one had painstakingly earned with countless individuals who valued competence over charisma. My name wasn't just a signature. It was a guarantee. And without it, the empire we had built together began to crumble. The first public cracks appeared in the Meridian deal, a massive residential complex in Baton Rouge that was supposed to be Julian's legacy project. I'd personally overseen the land acquisition, navigated the intricate zoning laws, and secured the most favorable financing terms. But more importantly, I had cultivated a deep, almost familial relationship with the local council members, the construction crews, even the landscape architects. They trusted me. Julian, in his typical fashion, had waltzed in at the 11th hour, charming everyone with his grandiose vision and taking full credit for the groundwork I'd laid. Now, without my quiet assurances, without the subtle nod of my approval, the foundations began to crumble. Contractors started demanding upfront payments they'd previously waived. Permits that were once a formality became bogged down in endless red tape. The city council, suddenly wary, initiated a full environmental impact review, citing newly discovered concerns. Julian called me, his voice a strained whisper, a stark contrast to his usual booming confidence. "Eleanor, what's happening with Meridian? Johnson from City Hall just rescinded the final approval for Phase 1. I leaned back in my chair, the sunlight streaming through my office window in a small, nondescript building I'd quietly purchased months ago. "Julian," I said, my voice calm, almost detached. "My name isn't on the Meridian deal anymore. Remember?" A long silence stretched between us, punctuated only by the distant hum of traffic outside my window. I could almost hear the gears grinding in his mind, the slow, agonizing realization dawning on him. He'd dismissed my contributions, convinced they were minor details. He was about to learn just how vital those details truly were. The collapse wasn't sudden, not a single thunderclap. It was a slow, agonizing unraveling, like watching a magnificent tapestry meticulously pulled apart thread by thread. first Meridian, then the distribution network in Memphis that supplied our agricultural division. My name had been the unspoken guarantee, the bond that held the disparate parts of Northwood Holdings together. I had built the relationships, cultivated the trust, managed the intricacies that Julian never bothered to understand. He was the flashy marquee, but I was the structural steel. The news reports, initially speculative whispers, became front-page headlines. Northwood Holdings in turmoil. Key deals collapse amidst unexplained withdrawals. The analysts were baffled. Julian, in his public statements, blamed unforeseen market shifts and aggressive competitor tactics. But I knew the truth, and so did he. He was watching his empire, built on the foundations I had laid, crumble before his very eyes. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. The true cost of Julian's arrogance became evident not in the headlines, but in the silence that followed. The frantic calls from investors dried up, replaced by terse emails from legal teams demanding explanations and, increasingly, demanding their money back. The buzz of activity that once characterized Northwood Holdings' downtown Shreveport headquarters faded into an eerie quiet. Lights remained off in offices that were once bustling, the faint scent of stale coffee replacing the usual aroma of success. I heard snippets from former colleagues, the ones Julian had increasingly marginalized. Sarah, our former head of acquisitions, told me he was holding marathon meetings, yelling at anyone within earshot, desperately trying to salvage deals that had long since gone cold. Mark, the CFO, who I always suspected harbored a secret disdain for Julian's profligacy, reportedly tendered his resignation, citing irreconcilable differences. The rats, as they say, were abandoning the sinking ship. My own life, ironically, grew quieter yet more fulfilling. I was no longer chained to the relentless pace of Julian's ambition, no longer constantly battling to keep his impulsiveness from derailing our ventures. The small office I'd secured became my sanctuary. I spent my days methodically charting my next moves, reaching out to the network of trusted professionals I'd cultivated over 2 decades. Individuals who valued discretion, integrity, and genuine competence. They knew who truly built Northwood Holdings. One afternoon, a notification popped up on my screen. An article from a local business journal. The headline screamed, "Northwood Holdings files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy." A small, almost imperceptible tremor went through me. It wasn't triumph, not exactly. It was more a profound sense of closure, the final, undeniable proof of what I had always known. Later that week my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. "Eleanor." The voice was hoarse, defeated. It was Julian. "Yes, Julian," I said, my voice steady. He hesitated, a long drawn-out pause. It's gone, Eleanor. Everything." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. He'd made his bed. The news of Northwood Holdings' bankruptcy rippled through the financial world like a tremor, but for me, it was merely the ground settling after a long, drawn-out earthquake. The immediate aftermath was a strange calm. My phone, once a constant source of interruptions, now chimed only with messages from a select few. Some were genuine well-wishers, former colleagues who'd privately admired my work ethic. Others were discreet feelers from venture capitalists and high-net-worth individuals, curious about my next move. They knew, even if Julian hadn't, that the real value lay not in the company name, but in the person behind its most significant successes. I didn't rush into anything. My focus shifted from the external chaos to internal reconstruction. I spent weeks meticulously reviewing the market, identifying gaps, and sketching out a business plan that was leaner, more agile, and fundamentally built on the principles Julian had so carelessly discarded. Trust, meticulous planning, and genuine partnership. No more riding shotgun to an oversized ego. This time I would be at the wheel, navigating my own course. My first foray back into the market wasn't a grand, audacious move, but a strategic acquisition of a struggling logistics firm in Houston. It was small, overlooked by larger players, but possessed a solid network of regional contacts and a dedicated, albeit underutilized, team. My name, once whispered in hushed tones as the quiet force behind Northwood, now carried a different weight. The weight of someone who knew how to build, and more importantly, how to rebuild. I personally visited every one of the firm's key clients, not with a flashy presentation, but with a simple, direct approach. I listened to their pain points, offered tailored solutions, and most importantly, re-established the human connection that Julian's corporate machine had long forgotten. My reputation for detailed execution and integrity preceded me. Word spread. Within 6 months, the little Houston logistics company, rebranded as Eleanor Solutions, was not just profitable but expanding. We weren't chasing massive, high-risk deals. Instead, we focused on steady, sustainable growth, building a loyal client base one successful delivery at a time. The work was demanding, but it was my work, unburdened by Julian's reckless ambition or his condescending pronouncements. The taste of genuine success, earned on my own terms, was sweeter than any victory Julian had ever claimed. The Louisiana heat still pressed down, but now it felt like the warmth of opportunity, not the stifling weight of someone else's shadow. The growth of Eleanor Solutions wasn't meteoric, but it was steady, deliberate, and fiercely independent. We expanded our reach, opening new hubs in Dallas and Atlanta, strategically placing ourselves at the crossroads of major shipping lanes. My focus remained on building genuine relationships, ensuring every client felt like a true partner, not just another account number. I personally oversaw the hiring, seeking out individuals who shared my values: competence, integrity, and a quiet dedication to excellence. There were no more grand pronouncements or flashy press conferences. Our success was built on consistent, reliable performance. I found a renewed satisfaction in the daily work. The challenges were still immense, but they were my challenges, met with a team I trusted implicitly. We optimized routes, integrated cutting-edge tracking technology, and even branched into specialized cold chain logistics, a niche Julian had always dismissed as too much hassle. It was precisely that attention to detail, that willingness to delve into the hassle, that set us apart. The industry watchers who had once speculated about Northwood Holdings' inexplicable downfall now turned their attention to the quiet rise of Eleanor Solutions. Business journals, those same ones that had chronicled Julian's demise, now featured articles detailing our innovative approaches and impressive client retention rates. They called it a phoenix from the ashes story, though I knew it was far less dramatic. It was simply the inevitable outcome of good work, done well. One crisp autumn morning, I was attending a logistics conference in Nashville, a city I'd always found charming. I was heading to a panel discussion, a casual coffee in hand, when I saw him across the crowded convention hall. "Julian." He looked diminished. His tailored suit seemed to hang on him, and the arrogant swagger that had once defined his every movement was gone, replaced by a subtle slump to his shoulders. He was talking to someone, gesticulating feebly, a shadow of his former bombastic self. Our eyes met across the expanse of the hall. For a fleeting moment, the years melted away, and I saw the young, ambitious man I had once partnered with. But then the memory of his sneering words, "I made you who you are," resurfaced sharp and clear. I felt no triumph, no desire for retribution, just a quiet, profound sense of detachment. He was a relic of a past I had painstakingly moved beyond. He started to take a step towards me, a hesitant, almost pleading gesture. I simply offered a small, polite nod, the kind you give to a distant acquaintance, and turned away. My panel was about to start, and there were new foundations to build. My journey was forward, always forward. The brief, almost imperceptible encounter with Julian in Nashville solidified something within me that I hadn't fully realized. Freedom. It wasn't just the freedom to build my own business, but the freedom to detach myself from the past, from Julian, and from everything he represented. There was no longer a need to prove anything to him or to anyone. The success of Eleanor Solutions was proof enough in itself. I returned to Louisiana with a newfound energy. The expansion into the Southeast was consolidated, and it was time to look toward new frontiers. I identified the Pacific Northwest as a region with tremendous untapped potential in sustainable logistics, a sector that had always interested me but which Julian had dismissed as too niche. In Seattle, I established the next phase of Eleanor Solutions. I hired a team of experts in renewable energy and route optimization to develop a fleet of electric and hybrid vehicles, and implemented warehouse management systems that minimized waste. It wasn't just about profit. It was about building something that had a positive impact, something I could truly be proud of. The challenges were immense, of course. Competition was fierce, and technology was constantly evolving. But I felt more alive than ever. Every problem was a puzzle to be solved, every setback a lesson to be learned. I wasn't just running a company. I was shaping the future, one environmentally conscious shipment at a time. My reputation grew, and not just in the business world. I was invited to speak at sustainability conferences, to mentor young female entrepreneurs. The woman Julian said he had made was now setting a new standard, not through ostentation, but through the substance of her work. My life was complete, full of purpose and, for the first time in a long time, truly my own. The following years brought phenomenal growth for Eleanor Solutions. From a small operation in Houston, we became a national powerhouse in logistics, with a strong and respected presence on every coast. We never lost sight of our fundamental principles: efficiency, integrity, and, above all, the importance of people. My employees were treated as partners, and our clients as an extension of our family. That modest office in Shreveport, where it all began, remained a silent reminder of the journey. Every now and then I'd pass by, observing the activity, the life that now pulsed in a space that once housed the shadow of a collapsing empire. Julian became a footnote in my story, a catalyst for my true ascent, but not the protagonist. My personal life flourished alongside my professional one. I found time for the things Julian had never allowed me to prioritize: travel, hobbies, and building genuine friendships, not based on networking but on real connection. The solitude that sometimes accompanied me during the years with Northwood Holdings was replaced by a rich tapestry of relationships and experiences. Looking back at that day Julian uttered his arrogant words, "I made you who you are." I realized the poetic irony. He was right in a twisted sense. His words and his ego set me free. He propelled me to discover who I truly was, without his limitations or his distorted view of success. I was the architecture, the engineering, the quiet force that built not just a company but a life. And so, Eleanor, the woman who pulled her name from every deal and watched an empire collapse, built a greater and more enduring legacy. It wasn't a legacy of power for power's sake, but of impact, integrity, and a powerful quietude that proved true value lies in what one builds with one's own hands and with one's own character. The Louisiana sun still shone brightly, but now it illuminated my own path, vast and limitless.